Hi everyone, I'm Marieanne, the Artsie Crafter. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to make some fabric covered envelopes, and this is my little prototype. I've never made envelopes with fabric on the outside, not that I remember anyway, but I thought this month I'm making a Bohemian junk journal, so I thought some fabric covered envelopes would suit very well. So that's what I did. This is the prototype, as I said, and I'm going to be making 2 envelopes on video, so you can come along with me and I'll show you how I make those. As I said, I've never done this before, so we'll see together whether they'll work out or not. So for now, I'll show you through this one what I did. I just tied it up with some binding ribbon here, and on the outside I just had some of this beautiful looks like spiderweb lace here, and it has some beading on there, so I glued that onto some coffee dyed paper. It's just regular copy paper, and then I did this little decorative edge on the top flap there, and I glued on some braid, and then on the inside I just glued on some decorative paper there, and you can see that I stitched this lace fabric onto the base page, and then these edges here I just inked in black so that they don't stand out. So that's pretty simple there, and you can go ahead and decorate this or just leave it plain. I think it's quite pretty. I think it has enough decoration on it, doesn't need anything else. So that's those. I have all these beautiful fabrics here, so I want to go ahead and use them. So to start, I'll show you how I do the base, and I started with a sheet of dyed copy paper, and I just drew some lines here. I cut the page down to fit my journal, because my journal's 5.5 by 8 high, so I wanted it to fit comfortably on the page, which is about 13.5 centimeters by 20 centimeters high. So I didn't want my envelope to be too big, so I ended up cutting this panel down to 7 inches by 10 inches high, or 7.5 centimeters by 25.5 centimeters high, and I drew on the side hinges here they're 1/2 inch or 1 1/4 centimeters, and then the top flap here is 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimeters, and the bottom flap is 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters. So I drew these lines because then it was easier. I'll take this off. It's easier to turn these over and make the folds, which will, the reason I'm doing this will become apparent as we move along. And then I used a tool, one of these tools, blunt edge tool, and I scored along these side hinges or flaps, whatever you like to call them, like that, and folded them over. Sometimes scoring doesn't work so well, but there we go. And I didn't do very well on this one. Yeah, never mind. There you go. I've already gone ahead and done the other side. So get all those folds completed, and then the next step, you've probably seen these envelopes being done, and I kept it simple because we're covering in fabric, so you don't want to make it too complicated. So if you have you could start off with an envelope, a ready-made envelope like this, but you'd have to undo all these panels here. So to save having to do that process, I just started with a plain piece of paper and going to make my own envelope. The other thing is, we're going to be cutting, I just pop my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Easier on this side where you can see we're going to be cutting these sections out here. So this one here, slightly on an angle here. So all this section will be cut out, and the same as the other side on there. And then for the top here, we're going to be cutting this out and some of this. But what I did was I just drew a decorative edge like that. So when you have, like you saw in the other one that I did here, you don't have to, you can cut it off to the top of here if you want to and have nothing, but I think it creates, you know, like you see on a regular envelope, that little curve there, which I think is quite nice. So, and to cut that out, the easiest way I find is to fold this over, fold it together, and then get a pair of scissors and cut that curve out like that. And then the same with these little flaps here. I use my small scissors and match those edges up like so, and then cut that little flap out to the fold line. And then I use my scissors, larger scissors, and the reason I like to have the line is I cut down on the inside of that line to that point there, so that when you fold the flaps over, you won't have any pieces of paper sticking over the edge. So I'll show you. When you fold this up like so, you won't have any bits sticking out over the edge, because that tends to happen. So I cut to the fold at an angle, and then I just cut straight to where we cut those panels out. So again, I cut on the inside of that line or that fold to the fold line there, and then I just cut straight down from there to that decorative edge, trimming it all up. And then when we can fold this over, everything will sit neatly like so, nothing sticking over the edge. So the next thing that I did with this one, I glued on a decorative panel, so you can do that if you want to have something on the inside. But on this one, I'm going to use a stencil, because I can't use a stencil enough, seeing that I made the stencil myself. So I want to use it as many times as possible to get the value out of all that effort that I put into it. And I'm just going to put some plastic under there. Excuse the mess of the plastic, but I've been using these plastic sheets a lot. Find they help. And I'm going to center that as best I can on there. And I'm going to be using some aged mahogany and my little brush. And I'm going to try and do a light or a shaded, I don't want it too dark, just to so you don't have a blank inside flap. I like to have something in there to make it look pretty. And just see how that looks. Just want it darker in some areas than others. That's quite nice. That aside, and you just make sure that it goes down far enough. And then on these little flaps here, you can come back, and the last ones I did in black, and these ones I'll just do in that mahogany. Get them fairly dark. See how that, I think that should work fairly well. Okay, so that's all done. Put all that aside. And then for this first one here, this is the second one that I'm going to make. So the first one, I have it already here. And in this one, I did stencil it in the black ink. and then it's all ready to go. So I'm going to fold these flaps in to start with, and I'm going to cut out a panel of lace, and I love this lace because it has those sparkles in there so you can just see them. So I'm going to cut out a panel to cover that like that, and then I'm going to glue just around the edges and along these seams to keep this onto the panel, and then I will go and I'll glue it on first, and then when the glue dries I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'll sew around those edges. I'll just sew all the way around the outside because the glue should be hold these center seams to the page well enough, and then I will glue these strips of braid on here on the top and the bottom, and then along the side here on those sides, and then we can fold that up. And before I do that, so I'll go ahead and glue this down and sew around the edges. Before we put this braid on, we're going to be decorating the top panel. So I'll do that first. Do the glue first. Okay, that's glued down, and before I do anything else, I'm going to go along and make sure these flaps are closed, and then I'm just going to trim this off around the edge so it's easier to see it on this side where you need to trim. So I'll do that. Just notice this bit down here, I mustn't have got any glue on there. I'm going to put some on there. There we go. And then fold this up and this one down. And before we put this trim around the edges, I'm going to put this on here so this edge won't get that trim. I'm glad I remembered that. I'm just putting this bit of lace on the top panel there, and then I've got this pretty braid I'm going to glue onto the top of there. So I will actually put this in position, this bit of lace. You can see it better if I do it this way, and I just measure where that will go, that will cover. So I'll glue this on as well, because you don't have to sew these edges. The glue should hold it well enough, but I like the idea of sewing the lace on. Okay, so and I don't want to see the sewing on this this braid because it's very fine, and I think it would damage it if I tried to sew it on. I don't know, but I think I'd rather just glue it on. So the only thing you got to remember, if you're going to, the glue will keep it on there, so don't worry if you don't want to sew it. Just that's finished, you've done with that step. But I'm going to go and sew it, and I'll come back. If you are going to sew it, just remember to pull out your side flaps because you don't want to sew them shut. It'll be very hard to create the envelope otherwise. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll come back and we can get on with the next step. Well, things don't always work out the way you expect them to. My machine didn't like, the glue must have been still a bit too wet because it didn't like, it was trying to mangle my poor envelope there. It did part of it, so that must have been where all the glue had dried and this bit wasn't quite dry. But so we'll just move along. There's nothing we can do about that. I could leave it a little later on and wait for it to completely dry, but as I said, you don't really need to sew it. So we'll continue on, I think. There's just the things that happen when you're crafting. So the next stage is to, before I forget, is to sew, not sew, we're not sewing anymore. We're going to glue this on, and I'll do the bottom edge first. I'll glue that on. It's hard to know which is the right side up and which is the wrong side. I think that one, I can see some white there. So I'll glue these around the edges there on the 3 sides, and then I can put that braid on the end. Actually, I will put the braid on first, and then I'll know where I have to put this gold edge to. So I'll do that first, and I'll do it on the braid. And so I'll use my trusty ruler to press it down. There we go. Now I know, turn this around. Where this will go up to the edge of there and to there. There you go. Move that side a bit further. It's all glued down, ready to be folded up. And now we can glue these side panels down. And fold this one over. And there's our envelope. So just make sure I didn't glue anything I shouldn't have glued. That's good. And then to tie it up, because you've got this in the way, so really the only option with this one is to use some ribbon and some of this ribbon here. And I don't know whether it's going to be long enough to tie up doubled over, but we'll see what we can do. So there's that one all ready to go. Neaten it up, move it over and play around with it. So that's that one. So those are done in a similar fashion, this one and this one, and there's different edges. So put those aside, and then I better put the lid on my glue, clean the glue top off first. Then for this next one, I want to do something a little different. Again, I want to use these fabrics. I probably won't use this one, but I thought I wanted to make some kind of use them all or some of them into like a collage type thing. So maybe some panels. So I played around with it, and I'll show you what I've come up with. Put that aside and get the envelope out that I wanted to cover this with. And so I just cut these panels out, and then I played around with them. The thing when you're putting strips together is to make sure you don't have anything over the edge here, which will be, I'll make that more clear when we get to that section. And there, and then instead of another piece of fabric, I was going to put this green on the bottom, but instead I decided to use this braid here. I'll put this on here so that I can move it around. So I just played around with these fabrics, and the reason why you don't want the join between the two fabrics on the fold is because they won't sit neatly. especially, you know, if you're going to use glue and you're not going to sew these panels together, they mightn't stay together when you fold the envelope. So something like that. So as I said, I played around with these for a little while, and then to finish it off, I decided to add some braid or lace, and I think wanted to do something like this. And I love this gold leaf trim, something like that, and then this beautiful floral lace here. So I added that on there, tried to match the colors up where I could, and I need to move all this down a bit, I think. Anyway, you get the idea, something like that. I want this green to be up the top there, and then this piece can go like that. Makes it a very fancy envelope. So I've never done this before, so I don't know how it's going to work out. I've got my fold here and the folds here of the envelope, so if I glue these panels onto the envelope, they should be able to fold without any hindrance, whereas if you had this on the folds here, it would just make it very difficult to fold, to get that fold to sit neatly. So that's why I made sure not to have anything on the fold, just the basic fabric itself. So I will go ahead and glue all those on. There we go, I've got all the fabrics on there, or fabrics and lace, and I'm going to put this one on first, so I know where I want it. I have no idea how this is going to work out, because I don't even know which is the top and which is the bottom flaps yet. So it's going to be a bit of a surprise. Make sure that edge gets down firmly, and then I might cut these panels out. Now I know which is the top and which is the bottom. Just readjust that. I really should have had it the other way around. I could have had it that way. Never mind. We'll have to do something to that edge. So now I'm just going to attach these where I wanted them. So there's one there, one here, and one there, and I'll have to do something to that top section there. I don't know what I had planned for that, but we'll find out. I'm sure I'll find something. For now, I'll just go ahead and glue these on. So I'll cut these out so I don't waste any of this trim. So there we go, all the panels are glued on, and just have to wipe some stuff off my fingers first before we carry on. Okay, I got most of the glue off my fingers, still some on there. If you're wondering why I've got band-aids on both my thumbs, I was out, we had some fine weather at the beginning of the week, and I wanted to get out and do some gardening. I had to dig up some dirt and shovel it around into the wheelbarrow and move it around to another side of the backyard, because we're going to be laying some new pebbles down. So I wanted to get a head start on that, and I haven't been doing any shoveling or whatnot for a long time. So yes, got a couple of blisters on there, and I didn't want to. They're pretty ugly when the top of the blister bursts. It's and then you've got an open wound that nobody wants to look at because it's not very pleasant. I'm just trimming up these edges here and this one. There we go. Get rid of this. So, because the next bit is see how this works out, and you can see I went overboard. After me telling you not to put it on the edge, I ended up on the edge there, and I don't think it's going to stay, so I'm going to have to take that off. To me telling you not to put it on the edge, and I went and put it on the edge, so not to worry. I'll just have to re-glue it down. Maybe it would have been better if I had folded the envelope up first and put the braids on, but as I said, this is an experiment. I haven't done this before, so we learn together. So there's a bit of glue on there that I'll clean up later on, and fold these flaps in, and hopefully I've done it up the top there, but I've done it, it's thin enough that it hasn't interfered with the fold, so that's lucky for me. So, and you can see I haven't got it on straight, which, you know, it's fairly straight on this side but not the other side, which is kind of funny, but I don't mind. And we're going to do something with this top edge here, so I'll go and find something to put on the top edge. Before I do that, I'll show you what I had in mind for a closure. I just got some of this sari ribbon, and it was a pale pink, and I didn't want the pale pink. I wanted to match these colors, so I just got some watercolors out, and I just sprayed this with some water, and I laid it out, and I just dabbed it on. I used some yellows, pinks and greens on there, and I just blended them together where they overlap, and then left it to dry. And I did a long piece because I didn't know how much I would use, but I think it matches the envelope quite well, as you can see. So that will be the closure. So we've got that to look forward to attaching in a minute, and just need something on there. As I said, if I did it all over again, I would have done it that way around, which you can do. There's nothing to say your top flap has to be shorter than your bottom flap, but I've got the decorated edge, and of course I don't have this stenciled, so I won't do that. I'll go back to my original idea and just get something to go on there. A tassel would be nice, but I'll see what I have. Okay, I've got something like this that's a tassel. I can put that on the edge, so that is a choice. And of course I could go with some more of this, some other kind of braid on there. That looks quite pretty. So that's the other option there. And then I've got something like this, but this has got this on there. So that's another option. I could put that on there. That'd be quite nice. Of course I could always put this gold trim that I used on the other envelope on there, just overhang on the edge there, but that's too matchy I think. I don't like that. Of course you can go back to this one as well, put that on there. That would go nicely as well, but I think I like the other one because this has got the gold, which blends with that a bit too much, I think, anyway. And then I've got this here, which is very layered. That on there. they would look very pretty, but I think it's a bit of overkill as far as I'm concerned. So I think I will go with, I've got a little piece here with this one. I think I like this, and it matches in with all the rest of the braid there, like that. I think I'll add that. That's my final choice. Imagine sending this in the post. I wonder what the mailman would think. Actually, it would look quite pretty for a wedding invitation. And I think that would be lovely as a wedding envelope for a wedding invitation or some fancy celebration. I just don't know how they would get it through those machines. I don't know if they still go through those machines where they put those stamps on it. So it probably wouldn't, yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if they would accept them. You'd have to get it hand delivered, I think. Use a courier company. Okay, there we go. And I'll just glue down these side flaps. Okay, make sure I didn't get any glue where I shouldn't. There we go. And that's the envelope. And I think that's a pretty special envelope. Don't you agree? If you I'd love to hear what you think of the envelope with all this fancy braid and fabrics on there. So please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And of course, to finish it off, we're going to add this ribbon, and this is that sari silk, and it's got it's been joined in the middle, so one side's thicker than the other, and I'm thinking that the thinner side might be better. And I think I should have enough on that one strip. Yes, I'll have plenty to make a nice tie. And make sure I get it all even. I could probably do a third one. Let's see what happens if I do a third wrap around. There we go, there's the envelope. The other thing you can do is add some charms to the ends and perhaps loop it through and have the charms dangling down. But because I want to put this in a pocket in the envelope, I think that might add too much bulk. If you had just attached it, you can have a paper clip and attach it to a page, and so that it's removable. Then you could do the dangles. That would be fine, I think. But I just love it the way it is. It's very bohemian. And there's the back there. So that's all I have for you today. I think that was a nice little fun exercise to do, and I'll just bring the others back. I'll clean off my desk so you don't have to see my messy desk. And I did have the other envelopes. Oh, here they are. So that's that one and this one here. I'll just quickly tie the bow up so you get the full effect. There we go. There's our envelopes. And my Bohemian envelopes, and I'll enjoy putting them in the journal. So I'll give you the close-up again so you can see them. I want to thank everyone for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, because we have lots more of these beautiful projects to make. So for now, I want to wish everyone a happy crafty day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.